Gentlemen and female gentlemen, we are doing lore. That's right, over here on the Taku channel. Every single day we do a lore video. Today's lore is the Crusades. All right, this was literally the most requested video I get. Why the Crusades were awesome, actually. Oh boy, baby, we are doing a deep dive into this one today. So the Crusades are obviously looked at very badly in modern society, and also, to be honest, the Crusades are looked at pretty badly by Jewish people. The reason for that is because even though the Crusades was largely a defensive war of Christians against Muslim invaders, a lot of Jewish communities were murdered, like, in the crossfire of all this. So, from the perspective of the Jewish people, the Crusades were bad. But from the perspective of the Christian people, I think they were pretty justified. So, anyway, let's lock in. Let's see what we actually got here. The Crusades were awesome, actually. We're doing lore every day, new lore. And that includes history lore. That's right, we're doing history deep dives now. It was literally requested by democratic vote in my audience. So lock in, everybody. Let's see what we got.
In 2005, the film Kingdom of Heaven was released to the world.
All right.
The film takes place during the major historical conflict between the Christian world and the Islamic world that we today call the Crusades.
But I was told that literally it's the Jews that are getting Christians to think that Muslims don't like them. That's what I was told. It's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting.
Beginning in 1096, Catholic Europeans embarked on quests to retake the Holy Land and spread the faith to new areas of the globe. You would think that in a historical drama like this, we would get a fair portrayal of both sides, with the nuances of the conflict being shown. We don't. The film portrays the Christian Crusaders as bloodthirsty barbarians.
Thanks, Hollywood! Thanks, Hollywood! Very cool! And the Muslims were so good. The Muslims, they were just people. People! Religion of peace! Never hurt! Never touched the hair on a goat's bottom. They were nothing but kind and wholesome. And those Christians, ugh, they don't like their lands getting raped. That's diabolical.
Their Islamic opponents are shown as intelligent and peaceful.
That's so funny because okay, all right. I was gonna make an inbreeding joke, but we're not gonna do that because we're classy here on the Taku Lore channel.
Now, it should be said that Ridley Scott, the director of the film, is an atheist, so we can see why he deliberately decided to portray things this way. But regardless of Scott's motivation, the portrayal of the Crusades in Kingdom of Heaven reflects how they've been understood by a majority of Westerners for decades.
True.
Documentaries like the History Channel's Mankind, The Story of Us single out the Crusades as a uniquely evil chapter of human history.
I think of all the wars fought over religion, the Crusades belong in their own category.
It is one of the most shameful...
Bro. They literally got a guy that looks like Smeagol to work on this movie?
...undertakings ever embarked upon by our species.
In all of these cases, the same narrative is presented. One day, crazy Christians decided to attack the peaceful and enlightened Islamic world just because they could. The events are held as a staple of why we need separation of church and state, and why Catholicism should have no place in government. We're led to believe that if Christians have power again, they'll start unnecessary wars of religion, just like the Crusades.
It's kind of wild watching this, because, I mean, I would replace the entire Democratic Party with Catholics if I could. Like, if I had the option to just snap my fingers and swap the Democroids for Catholics, I would do it. Like, not even exaggerating.
But in reality,
I'm not even a Catholic.
There are few events in history more misunderstood than the Crusades. This is why I'm making this video. The popular understanding of the Crusades is dead wrong, and I'm here to explain why.
Alright,
in this video, you'll be finding out why the Crusades were not only morally justified, but were actually a historic achievement.
Alright.
Buckle up, because...
I mean, like, look, I have to give you my perspective. I'm a Jewish guy, alright? I'm a Jewish guy. From the Jewish perspective, the Crusades had a lot of Jews killed, alright? So, not trying to exaggerate, it was pretty bad for Jews, all right? Because Jews really had nothing to do with any of this. However, it was obviously a defensive war against Islamic aggression and colonialism. Like, duh! Hello?
There's a lot to cover.
True. In fact, you don't even have to go back 1,500 years, bro. You don't have to go back 1,500 years to see that. In fact, Egypt and Syria and Armenia and like all these other areas, they were Christian 50 years ago. All right, I'm not even kidding. 50 years ago, they were Christian. You don't have to go back that long. I wonder what happened. I wonder what happened.
Always the case.
So interesting. How did there get so many Muslim lands? If Muslims are against colonialism, look, I'm not trying to be controversial here or anything, but if Muslims are against colonialism, how are there 56 Muslim majority countries? How did this happen? How did it spread? Armenia is still Christian? Yeah, it's still Christian. But Lebanon used to be Christian majority. Now it's only about 10% Christian. Egypt used to be Christian majority. Now it's, I think, less than 10% Christian. Syria, Iran. Iran! Did you know that Iran was a Christian country? Like, a lot of people don't know this. The only actual country in the Middle East where Christianity is actually thriving is Israel. Where Christianity increased by over 400% over the last 50 years. But suspiciously, in all these Muslim areas, the Christians are dying. I can't figure out how. I can't figure out how they're dying, but they are. Probably through peace. Death through peace, probably. That's what I have to say. I look at all the Christians dying in Nigeria, and I can't figure out who's killing them.
It all began
all those Zoroastrians
through history.
Yeah,
and Islam
absolutely.
followed in the...
Anyone that goes like and tries their absolute best to be like, no, actually, it's so bad that colonization happened for all of history. No people would be if you say that colonizers don't count as the new indigenous population of the land, then there are no indigenous populations of any land ever. All right, even the Native Americans. This is like a big thing that I always up in arms about it, and it's like, the white man is not native to America. The Native Americans are native to America, but the Native Americans have been killing each other and conquering their lands for 1,000 years before the first white man showed up in America. All right, you think that those different warring, savage, barbaric Native American tribes were like chill and stuff? Like, every time I watch a movie that has, like, that talks about, Native Americans, you get a nice grandpa Native American with bones in his nose, and he's surrounded by all of his granddaughter Native Americans around the fire while they do drugs and see visions. And that's beautiful. But they're also scalping each other and murdering other clans, all right? Again, I'm not saying this is a negative. That's just the reality. The reality is, none of them are indigenous to any land because they've always killed each other and conquered each other. It wasn't sunshine, rainbows, and gay sex like Disney likes us to think. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I'm not doing this anymore.
That same mold. However, Islam did take things a step further with its concept of jihad, or holy...
Yeah, because in Islam, it's not just conquest for getting more land or whatever. It was literally a holy war. Like, it literally says in the Quran that world domination is the goal of Islam. Not to be controversial or anything, but it's an actual goal. There's still slavery to this day in the Islamic world, while all the leftoids in America are posturing about how actually slavery is bad, and also Islam is based because they're so nice. They're always victims of everything. That's right. Islam's the perpetual victims. Yeah, so another part of Islam is there's something called the jizya tax, where essentially they would conquer lands, and they would take anyone that's not remaining as a Muslim, and they would make them basically second-class citizens in an apartheid state, which they still have to this day, by the way. And the second-class citizens would need to pay them like tribute money in order to survive. You have to understand what's actually going on. They literally would pay tribute money to not literally get executed. The Christians and the Jews in all these lands.
Christian inhabitants had to pay an enormous tax called the dhimmi tax, and their churches were often shut down.
I'm pretty sure it was called the jizya tax. They were dhimmis. The second-class citizens were called dhimmis. Jizya was the name of the tax. Very unfortunate name, but that was the name of the... All right.
During the days of the Roman Empire, the Mediterranean Sea was a breadbasket of commerce and trade. The Romans had successfully stamped out piracy and created some of the safest waterways in the entire world. Islamic piracy brought all of this to an end. From bases in North Africa and the
You mean to tell me that Muslims were pirates back in the year 1100? And you mean to tell me that the Somalis have yet to figure out any other form of business past that aside from opening quality leering centers?
Middle East, they turned the Mediterranean into an unsafe hellhole. This crashed the European economy and made Europe a miserable place for commerce for almost 400 years.
Exactly like what the Houthis were doing now.
Islam's so-called Golden Age came at Europe and Christianity's expense. This is the true reason that many consider the years 600 AD to 1000 AD a dark age for Europe. It was literally cut off from the entire world and constantly under attack. It was in this hellish environment that Christendom finally started to have enough. The first rumblings for a crusade came in 846 when an Arabic expedition to Sicily sailed up the Tiber River and sacked St. Peter's in Rome.
Wow, that sounds like they were attacked first or something, but I'm no historian.
Synod in France called for Christian sovereigns to rally against the enemies of Christ, and the Pope, Leo IV, offered a heavenly reward to those who died fighting the Muslims. But it was around 1000 AD when things really escalated on multiple fronts. In the west, the Islamic Caliphate of Cordoba in Iberia began expanding north. It conquered,
How did it expand? It just grew itself? I feel like I'm being too sarcastic for this video. How did it expand, though? It just, like, grew? Is it like one of those toys that when you put it in water, it gets bigger? It just expanded all on its own?
Burned and enslaved its way through multiple Christian cities, including Barcelona and Leon.
Wow, that sounds to me like they started or something. Wow, it's kind of crazy how this keeps happening. It's like history repeats itself or something. It's like, bro, and then they became the victims of the crusade. It's like they attack you, they conquer cities, they're the victims. I mean, look, we don't have to go back too far. 2 years ago, they launched an attack on Israel. All right, 2 years ago from Gaza, they launched an attack on Israel, and they're the victims. You don't have to go back too far. You go back a little bit further. 1967, they launched an attack on Israel, and they lost, and they were the victims. 1948, they launched an attack on Israel, and they lost, and they're the victims. It's pretty weird how this keeps happening.
It was this expansion campaign that finally provoked the Christian kingdoms to launch the Reconquista.
Expansion campaign. Colonialism campaign.
To retake
How
Iberia.
dare the Christians defend themselves against the poor innocent victims, the enlightened sand people?
From Islam. But if things looked rough in Western Christendom, they were even worse in the East. In the late 900s, a Central Asian Muslim group called the Seljuk Turks began migrating into Anatolia.
The Turks, eh?
In 1064, they completely conquered Armenia and sacked its capital, Ani. The city never recovered.
Yep, and then don't worry, guys. This is only the first time that the Islamic people from Turkey sack Armenia and genocide the Armenians. They decide to do this again later.
From this brutality and remains a ruin to this very day. Almost all of the Armenian population had to migrate southeast to Cilicia, creating an entire new kingdom called Cilician Armenia. In other words, Islam had made the Armenian homeland unlivable. The Turks then turned their expansion into the Byzantine Empire. They began invading western Anatolia in droves. The Byzantines tried to launch counterattacks, but were ultimately defeated at the Battle of Manzikert. After this defeat, Turks began mass migrating into Anatolia, completely altering its demographics.
You mean to tell me... Oh, God, I have to stop with the sarcasm. You mean to tell me that there was... mass migration? You mean to tell me that mass migration was a problem 1,000 years ago? And then, when they stopped mass migration, the media sphere that is pushing mass migration today says that that's actually unjustified? Wow, bro, I am literally in shock. I am literally in shock. So the media that's trying to globalize the mass migration is talking about the Crusades, which stopped mass migration, was actually bad. I told you, 2026, year of the Crusade.
Another region of the Christian world had just become Islamic by force. Here's how historian John J. O'Neill describes the circumstances. These, then, are the major political events which prefigured the First Crusade. Within a span of 35 years, the Turks had seized control of Christian territories larger than the entire region of France, and now they were a real threat to Europe.
It's crazy how we literally just, we memory hold the Crusades into our little brains, and then we decided, nah, let's do this again. This time we'll invite them, though.
Now by this point, the Byzantine Empire realized it was incapable of stopping the Islamic hordes by itself. Emperor Alexius Comnenus made a desperate appeal to the Pope and Western Christendom for aid. This was a major deal, because Eastern and Western Christendom had been in schism for almost 50 years by this point. The Catholic Pope and the Orthodox Patriarchs did not get along, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
But the issue had become that serious that they were now willing to cooperate. What made matters even more urgent was that Turks had begun persecuting Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land. Priests like Peter the Hermit, who would become one of the greatest advocates of the Crusades, witnessed this firsthand.
Damn.
This is the geopolitical environment that
led... Yeah, so all the green All the green that you're seeing on the map, that's all Muslim countries. I don't know how it happened because they obviously weren't colonizers or anything. They're anti-colonizers. That's what they say in the media. So I'm like, I don't know how it happened this far. I guess Muhammad was just like very inspiring or something.
Led to the First Crusade being called. Now, does it seem unreasonable when you get all this other context?
Well, you might be confused. Like, let me just show you the map. So, this, as you can see, this is all the green is Muslim countries. All right, and this over here, this is Israel. This is Israel. This little dot over here, this little thing, or this, yeah. So this is Israel, and this is the Muslim world. As you can see, they're very unhappy about this not no longer being a Muslim country.
This is what Catholic Europeans knew about Islam on the eve of the First Crusade. Muslims were enemies of Christ, they waged wars against non-combatants and enslaved women and children, and they had conquered all of Iberia, Anatolia, and threatened France and Italy. It was important that this all happened at the turn of the first millennia. By this time, the elites of Europe were finally starting to become much wealthier and better educated. They were developing a much stronger grasp of history and world
they also weren't fucking their cousins. That's a true fact. True point.
Affairs. Europe was safer and more interconnected than any time since the Roman Empire.
Think of how much pedophilia was stopped by the Crusades. Like, you have to look at it from that perspective.
They were beginning to truly understand just how much damage Islam had done to the Christian world, and how much of a civilizational threat it still represented. All the pieces were now in place for the Crusades to be launched.
Oh boy, here we go.
In 1095, the moment had arrived. Pope Urban II called for the First Crusade to retake the Holy Land and drive back Islam. It would be the first of many. An excerpt from Urban's Crusade speech reads, "Your brethren who live in the East are in urgent need of your help, and you must hasten to give them the aid which has been promised them. The heathens have killed many, and they have destroyed churches and devastated the Greek Empire. If you permit them to continue with impunity, the faithful of God will be much more widely attacked by them.
Oh boy.
On this account, I, or rather the Lord, beseech you as Christ's heralds to publish this everywhere, and to persuade all people of whatever rank to carry aid promptly to those Christians. Let therefore hatred depart from among you. Let your quarrels end. Let wars cease. And let all dissensions and controversies slumber."
It's so crazy to me that Europe is like sleeping right now. I don't know. Every time I watch this, translation, time to throw hands, true. No, it's crazy that every time I see this, like, I think about how, like, absolutely cucked Europe is. Like, to the point that Israel's Prime Minister, Netanyahu, just went out and gave a whole speech saying Christians are getting persecuted by Muslims across the Middle East. Like, we have to defend them. And it's like, this is coming from you? Like, where's the Pope? What's going on? Like, literally history's least expected, least expected patriot or something. Like, that's wild. I was shocked when I saw that.
It's important to point out
like, the fact that you got Netanyahu talking about this and not literally any European country. It's like, bro.
Pope Urban's speech emphasized not only the defense of Christendom, but also the end of internal wars between Christian kingdoms. The Pope envisioned an international brotherhood of Catholics who fought not each other, but their external threats. In any case, the call for crusade was extremely well received. The news spread through all of Europe like wildfire.
Oh boy.
Tens of thousands of faithful Catholics all across Europe answered the Pope's call. Lowly peasants, ambitious knights, even kings. French, English, Flemish, German, people from all walks of life and all nationalities were inspired to fight for Christendom. It's not really appreciated how much of an accomplishment that this alone was. It's really something entirely unique in human history. The Catholic Church had created a multinational network that united Europeans of all stripes and ethnicities under a common faith with common goals. So many
why are you guys doing that now? Come on, Christians. Like, why are you guys, aligning now against, like, the fucking heathens? The heathens that are ransacking your lands. Come on, Christians. What are we doing? Literally, what are we doing?
Different Europeans being united by one religion and engaging in a civilization-wide struggle had not happened before and has not happened since. Catholicism achieved what hundreds of other religions and ideologies could not. And perhaps this is why our modern secular system demonizes the Crusades.
I actually agree with this completely. I think the reason why the modern secular system demonizes the Crusades is that the Crusades fought back against exactly what the modern secular system is all for. The modern secular system is anti-God and pro-mass migration. The Crusades is pro-God and anti-mass migration. So obviously they have to paint the Crusaders as the bad guys. Obviously. There he is.
My precious, we will fight the Muslims. Yes. The Christians are cringe.
Now, did every crusade always go the best it could have gone? No, of course not. Some crusades were huge successes, like the Reconquista, while others were dismal failures, like the Fourth Crusade. But even the failures are understandable in context. Crusaders were going halfway across the world to fight unfamiliar enemies on their own home turf. The logistics of the Crusades alone were a monumental undertaking, and despite all these challenges, the Christian forces still often came out on top. The First Crusade could really only be qualified as a roaring success. Crusaders defeated almost every Muslim army they encountered and captured Jerusalem. For the first time in hundreds of years, the Holy Land was back under Christian control. The First Crusade also established Crusader states that would remain in the Middle East for another century. One crusade I personally like was the Sixth Crusade. Jerusalem had fallen back into Muslim hands, but they had started to fight each other in a civil war. Emperor Frederick II of the whole—
Yeah, so this is where, like, a lot of Jews were killed, because Jews lived in Jerusalem at this point. So obviously a lot of Jews were killed in this war. And again, I'm not even saying this as like a blaming the Christians or anything like that. It's just from a historical perspective, the Crusades were terrible for Jews. That's why there's always like multiple perspectives here. From the perspective of Christianity, I think it makes perfect sense to want to fight back and take your lands back and push back the invaders, you know?
Holy Roman Empire negotiated a peaceful transfer of Jerusalem back into Christian rule. Jerusalem was retaken without a single drop of blood being spilled.
That's
a
awesome.
Decisive diplomatic victory,
I didn't know that.
even if the Muslims would eventually take it back. As you can tell, during this time period, it was hard for just about anybody to hold on to Jerusalem for long. In the end, the Crusades secured Christendom's western flank and bought its eastern flank another 300 years. It wasn't until the emergence of the Ottoman Empire in the 1300s that Islam once again threatened Europe. But even when that happened, Crusaders once again went out to stop them. The Crusade of Nicopolis and the Crusade of Varna are two big examples of this. While they didn't succeed in stopping the Ottomans, they did show that Christendom was still capable of uniting to fight common threats in the name of God. And in the end, 300 years later in the 1600s, Ottoman power would be broken by what was basically a crusade. The Christian Holy League of Austria, Poland, Venice, and Russia united to defeat the Ottomans and drive them back from Europe. Despite all of this, some people say the Crusades failed. But did they? Europe was Christian when the Crusades were launched, and it's still majority Christian today, 1,000 years later. Although it is secularizing due to modernist ideologies. Ironically, it's only after the Pope lost his power to call Crusades that Christianity started to decline in Europe. But when we look back—
I don't know, man. I think we could blame feminism on this one. It really is. It was like this mass feminization of humans in general that, you know, just basically completely neutered all forms of power.
At these events, history shows it's not a shameful chapter of Catholic history.
I know that feminism is a lot more recent than that kind of thing, but it was like this ideology of just neutering power, and force is bad, right? All sorts of force is bad. All shows of force are pathetic and gay. And that ideology ended up, I think, eroding a lot. Like, ultimately, you need to be powerful. You need to have strength on your side. Everyone wants to say, I want to live in a peaceful world with no wars and stuff, but it's only going to be peaceful if you are on top and you're powerful enough. You should watch 500 Crusaders defeat 40,000 Ottomans. Maybe I will. I told you, man, I'm gonna be doing a deep dive. We are gonna be covering all of lore, including history now. We're a history channel now or something.
But the total opposite. The Christian world defended itself and spread the faith abroad after hundreds and hundreds of years of abuse. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the Crusades were awesome indeed.
Damn.
This has been Pax, and thank you so much for watching. If you—
That was a great video. I'll link in the description. Yeah, no, realistically, that's pretty insane. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, no. So, anyway, again, from a Jewish perspective, I've said this the whole time. A lot of Jews were killed during the Crusades. So, from the perspective of the Jews, who really weren't involved in any of this, it was terrible. Jews ended up getting killed many, many times throughout history. But the truth is, it was a justified fight back against Islamic aggression. And any other perspective than that, in my opinion, is doing their absolute best to be dishonest. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. Strength is important. Obviously, if you don't have strength, you have nothing, because someone else will have strength and they'll destroy you. Look, man, the way I see it, if you're not on top, then someone else is, because someone's always going to be on top. So if you want to be the peaceful pacifist guy and therefore neuter yourself, that means someone else is going to have the power to control you. And realistically, you know, unfortunately, that's just kind of how God created the world. Look, man, you read the Bible. God commanded wars. So anyway, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you guys. Big kisses to everybody. Subscribe. Daily videos on lore, all sorts of lore, Islam lore, history lore, why African people keep starving even though we keep giving them trillions of dollars lore. See you in the next one. Bye. Like, subscribe, and this video was streamed live on kick.com/Nuxanor. See you there. Stay weird, fam.